Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the studios of Grafton Community Television at 26 Providence Road. This is Meet the Candidate. I'm Bob DeToma. My guest in studio today is Mark Alimo. He's running for one of the seats on Select Board in this spring's election. Welcome. Good afternoon.
Good to see you, Bob.
So we're going to give you a few minutes to introduce yourself to the viewers at home, because there's probably a lot of people out there who don't know who you are or what you're about.
Right.
We'll start with the simple stuff. How long have you been a resident? What do you do for work? Why did you choose to run for Select Board? Take it away.
I'm still asking the same questions. So I am, the best way to describe myself right now is I'm Grace Alimo's dad. A lot of people know my daughter Grace. I'm also Lynn Alimo's husband. A lot of people know my wife. But because I've traveled so much in my career, my neighbors know me, but maybe not everybody in the town. So maybe a little snapshot of where I grew up. I grew up in northern New Jersey, not far from New York City. Son of Lynn and John, two of the great people you'll ever meet in your life. Youngest of three. Went to college in Maine. Met a young lady by the name of Lynn, who was from Marlborough, Massachusetts. Then the rest is history. We fell in love. We got married. I had a small contracting business in northern New Jersey. So she moved from Massachusetts to Jersey. We lived there for 6 or 7 years. Somewhere in the middle there, I got a job, in my first job in sales. So I switched from contracting to being in sales, traveling around the country probably 80% of the time. We can get into the detail of that, and it's a lot, but ton of travel, which enabled me to essentially live wherever I wanted to live, as long as I was near an airport. So, well, I heard Boston has an airport. My wife's from here. She missed her family, and we gave it a shot. So we moved to Grafton in 1996, and we've been here ever since. Same home, same. We've built our life here, our family here, and our whole home is here. Everything in our life is here. We had our daughter Grace. Oh boy, so she's 23, so you do the math. I can't figure that out.
I'm not doing any math. I was told there wouldn't be any.
So is it 1999 or 2000? I forget, Bill. So no, so we made our home here and our family here. And so that's a little bit about my history, about where I live and how long I've been here. A little bit about who I am, I can tell you, is more about defined by what I am. And that is, I am a husband, I am a father, I am a son, a brother, brother-in-law, son-in-law, cousin, nephew. I'm an uncle, and I am the favorite uncle, and no matter what my brother and Doug will say, I am, and they're going to give me a hard time if they see this, but it's true. I can put it to a vote. I'm also an employee, a member of the community, friend, neighbor, all those things. A couple of fun facts. I'm a huge Eddie Van Halen fan. I love 70s and 80s rock and roll. Big Deep Purple fan, Leonard Skinner, and I love reading books about those bands and all of their biographies. I love watching documentaries, going to concerts, things like that. Big into fitness and nutrition. We have a dog. And all of that stuff that I just told you about is essentially everything that I do in my life. From working 40 to 65 hours a week, to cutting the lawn on the weekends, to shoveling the snow, to hanging out with the family. That's who I am, and that's what I do.
What do you sell?
Well, currently I'm taking a little bit of a break.
Okay.
So I've been in 4 different industries. I started in the publishing world. You'll appreciate this. My first job in sales was to promote encyclopedias in supermarkets around the country, which was what the travel was all about.
Sure.
So I traveled from Jersey to California to Detroit to Chicago to Boston and back promoting encyclopedias. Then I sold office equipment in downtown Boston. Then I sold software around the country. Then I sold office equipment down in Connecticut. I managed their offices in Connecticut. And then I got into office furniture, which was a local position, and then that morphed into a national position.
So what do you do to keep in shape?
Well, it's a combination of self-torture and frustration that I don't look like Sylvester Stallone in Rocky III. And then every attempt to get outside and walk every morning. I walk at night, I run on a treadmill, I work on an elliptical machine, I do weights, I do anything I can possibly do to try to stay in shape and stay healthy. And I try to eat right too.
From what I understand, you're about the same height as Sylvester Stallone anyway, so you got that going.
So there's a chance.
Yeah, there is
You're
always,
telling me there's a chance.
always a
Perfect,
chance.
cool.
You made the decision to run for Select Board.
I did.
Walk us through that decision.
Well, here 27 years. Again, traveling a lot, out of town a lot. Probably putting all of my faith in community leaders and having the confidence that they do the right thing. And From what I've seen over the years, they have. I mean, you know this, no Stop and Shop many years ago, the police station, the fire station, Koopman's, all the restaurants that weren't here stopped for the commuter rail for Boston. You know, we could go on, the new high school, all those different things represents really wonderful progress. And you observe that. We observe that as we drive around our town. We know what we see, and for the most part, I love our progress, and I love the heritage and the history of the town. Having said that, yeah, a couple things catch my attention. I think they catch a lot of people's attention, whether it's, I got my tax bill the other day, I'm not complaining, it's totally fine, but it's a little bit more than it was in 1996. I can't ride my bike on George Hill Road. Not that I'm going to do that anymore because I'm afraid it's just too much congestion on the roads, but I don't know, you just see things. So I guess for me, I have a spot in my life right now where maybe I could say, well, if I like it or don't like it, do nothing. If I have an issue with it or if I don't like what I see, I can sell my house and move, or I can throw my hat in the ring and run for select board. And so I've chosen door number 3. And I do that, I'm doing it because I love the town.
Right.
I love living here. And, you know, I want to help. If you ever go to these meetings, if we ever listen into the committee stuff, the town needs people to help. The town needs people to help volunteer for anything, from a committee appointment to a pancake breakfast for, you know, whoever. It needs people to do some work. And for me personally, I want to serve. I believe in community service. I believe in service to community, service to your faith, service to your family, service to your company. And Lord knows I've given a lot of service to my companies. So, and I just feel like right now at this point in my life, I think I can do a pretty good job. In fact, I think I can do a great job. So that's why I decided to run.
So behind door number 3, what was the topic that interested you the most?
It's not one single topic. It's all the topics. And maybe it's just a matter of the...
What's the priority then? What number?
My priorities would be safety and stability of the community, economic development, and I know other select board candidates have talked about bringing in businesses into the town. That would be something that would be very appealing to me, to try to thread the needle of bringing in businesses here to this town and broaden our tax base. Fiscal discipline, you know, if you look at what we're considering for our town meeting, you know, there's a lot of things on the table. How does that get prioritized? I do that. I've done that in my work. I've done a lot of prioritization. And by the way, I've lost a lot of arguments with, you know, my manager on certain things that I'd like to see happen relative to investments in infrastructure with my business or with my team. But just all of those kinds of things. You know, there's a lot of new housing that's coming into town. You see that as well. There's a lot happening there, and I think that catches people's attention. So those are the kinds of things that are important to me. Among that, inclusive of that, would be engaging with people in the community. This has been an absolute amazing experience for me personally, to get to know people that I've never met before, and to connect with them, and to get to know them, and listen to them, and learn from them. I think that, you know, for me, I didn't know certain things were happening. I wasn't engaged. It's not a criticism, it's just that maybe I was on a plane.
Life gets in the way.
Life gets in the way. Things happen. It snows, there are delays, you got an important deal you got to work on, you're gone. But at the end of the day, you know, I think as much as we can do to engage our community on everything, and maybe even inspire some of the younger folks to come in and join and look at maybe some service as well themselves. And I happen to have a few connections to some folks from different generations that maybe I can have an influence on that. So it's not just one thing, Bob, it's many things.
So when you're shaking hands and meeting people on the street, what are you hearing? What are they talking to you about?
It's a little bit of everything, just what I talked about. I think, you know, some folks are, I'm hoping to have, you know, maybe more of a civil dialogue amongst one another, maybe have their voices heard a little bit more, maybe have their concerns considered a little bit more. I do hear things about the, you know, the housing stuff. I hear a lot about that.
In what regard?
In the regard where we're filling up a lot of open space inside the town with a lot of, you know, 3-4 buildings, 3-4 stories high, right next to, you know, homes and et cetera. So you hear a lot about that.
Yeah.
But, you know, I also hear optimism. I hear hope. I hear people that they love their town. They love what we're doing. They love who we are. And they love our community in a way that they want They want to keep it going. I think people are interested in progress. I certainly am as well. All the things I just talked about a little while ago, all those things that weren't here in '96, they're here now. That's progress. And that's a bit of our secret sauce. We have this really cool, quaint, suburban New England town that I fell in love with the minute I saw the gazebo when I drove through here 30 years ago, 27 years ago. And I think there's an opportunity to retain the beauty and the essence of who we are and still advance the cause of developing and adding, homes and communities and people and business, et cetera.
I get the sense, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that people are concerned about the growth of the town, and especially the number of new residents that get built in the blink of an eye. But it's my understanding that the town doesn't really have the power to stop those projects.
Right.
And then a member of the select board, any member of the select board, is challenged with how do we temper or tap the brakes a little bit just to, is that even a possibility? It's hard to find just the right mix.
Oh, you're right. So when I first started learning about that, I had no idea that it was a federal and state law. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't know that it's a federal and state law.
Correct.
So at the same time, you're right. This is a requirement. We have a compliance issue we have to hit. We have to deal with it. We have to do it. So there's no question that these things are happening, and they're going to happen. I'd say two things, though. I talked to some folks, and well, we're limited and whatever. And with all due respect, if you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. So maybe a voice in the room, whether it's select board or elsewhere, could say, well, hold on a second. Maybe there's a way to do this with minimal or less disruption to the community, or engaging with the community to connect with, their insights and their feelings about it, and maybe to try to negotiate something a little bit better with the community, because that's a piece, Bob, where I think we're missing a little bit. Again, not an argument. It's not a criticism. I'm new to this, and you know that. And I think a lot of people know that, and I seed the ground. I sure do. But as an objective, I think I'm an objective observer, because I just look at things, I listen, I think, and then I conclude, I didn't know, but I should. Do you live in the town?
I do.
You should know. Everybody should know. And the interesting thing is, when I talk about it with people, probably 50% of the people I talk to don't even know that it's a law. We should also know, what is safe harbor. Are we, or are we not in safe harbor? And that seems to be, it's funny, because in my world, you either hit your sales quota or you don't. And if you don't get paid.
Right.
And if you don't get paid, you don't pay your bills. And if you don't get paid and don't pay your bills, and you do that for a couple of years, you're out.
Right.
I've been able to sustain a long-term career because of that accountability that's chasing me. So I sort of see things a little bit more, I want to be careful. Black and white, maybe a little bit, and it's not, I know it's not that way, because I know this is a nuanced discussion. It sure is. But when I start hearing certain things like, we're in safe harbor, that we're not in safe harbor, I'm confused about safe harbor, let's just say we're in safe harbor, well, what is it?
Yeah.
And again, it's not an argument, it's not a criticism. What is it?
Right.
Yes or no?
Who has the final say?
Right. And then that's also, I think, something to consider. And then the other piece is, does one size fit all? Is that the way? That's just it, right? It's the law. We're going to do it. It's done. Forget it. Well, can we talk about that a little bit more, or is that just off the table? I don't know if that's a crazy position to take, but my view is, yes, you're right. This is going to happen. The question is, how can we do it thoughtfully? How can we do it carefully? And how can we do it by engaging the entire community and educating everybody as best as possible, so everybody understands what's happening? And then, just like I was in 1996, welcome everybody in. Welcome everybody in.
And perhaps there might even be a protocol or a guideline out there that people have overlooked that might help small towns like Grafton navigate that difficult decision process of too much growth. It's just out there, but we haven't searched deep enough to find it so that all parties can come together and work on the issue.
So I don't want to profess to be the expert on this, because I'm not.
Well, neither am I.
And I don't, and I know that there are experts. And wouldn't it be phenomenal if all the smart people got in a room and just dropped their weapons and had a conversation together and explored that particular option. Because I keep thinking to myself, is there some way through this where we can have more of a feeling of compromise? Would the community have an opportunity to feel like there may be a compromise here? And I think it's important, so.
When you said black and white, that was the first thing that made me think of that question, because if there's laws on the book, local and state-wise, that say, no, you can't do X, then the other side of my brain says, well, perhaps there's a law under different circumstances that says, yes, you can. And it's just somebody has to do the homework to figure that part out.
Right.
And
And maybe there people are. Again, not an argument, not a criticism. Maybe people have done that.
Right. And there's no expert in the
research.
room, like you said, who can point to it. There it is, right there.
Well,
Let's
maybe
talk-
there
yeah.
is.
And maybe there is.
And
right.
maybe they're just fighting too much to get that to that result, to that outcome. Who
Right.
knows?
Right. So besides the gazebo / bandstand, whatever your preferred title is, what else do you love about the town of Grafton? Talk about Grafton sports. Your kids were involved in Grafton sports?
So I
or-
only have one child. Her name is Grace. She was in lacrosse for about a half an hour. Not her thing. I'm kidding. She was in it for about a year or so. She's going to get so mad at me when she sees this.
I was going to say half an hour would be the whole game.
I'm in
wouldn't it?
trouble. Yeah, no. So, Gracie was more, and she was into other things. So what's interesting is, so no, I didn't do that. I didn't get into that too much, which was unfortunate. You would think that I would. I love it. I love sports. I love football. So I haven't done any of that. My friends did. Friends were coaches and all part of it, part of the Little League stuff. So I get to see it ostensibly, or saw it ostensibly through them. So. But I love the town. I just love the nature of it. I love the feeling of it when I drive off the pike. I just love the roads. I love the trees. I love just, the walking the neighborhood all the time. I love the dogs the people must think I'm a little bit crazy because I pet all the dogs in the neighborhood. I know my wife is a little bit frustrated with that because I do too much of that. Just kidding. But the people are so nice. I will tell you that the tavern serves a really great adult soda. And Reunion has the best burger I've ever had in my life. So, tons of that. Do you disagree with me? Am I right? Right. Yeah.
Bill's our audience. We always refer.
Those are the best burgers. I'm telling you. And I've been all over the country. I have burgers everywhere. They're fantastic. So.
Any final thoughts or any final points that you may have missed and you want to bring up before I turn you loose on the voters?
Well, thank you. So, I'd say that there's going to be a moment here where people think about an absence of public record. And people are going to wonder, well, he seems like a nice guy, carries on a nice conversation, has a nice coat, whatever. But what has he done? What qualifies him for this work? And I want you to know that I actually ask the same questions quite a bit. I do not want to be a disruption in this process. I don't want to be disrespectful to the position of select board member. I don't want to be disrespectful to the people of select board or anybody in town leadership. I don't want to be disruptive or disrespectful to the process. So I really knuckled down and did a lot of research. I talked to current members of the select board. I talked to past members of the select board. I've spoke with people that ran for select board and lost. I've spoken with people that currently work for the town. I've spoken with people that did work for the town but are now retired. Friends, neighbors, my wife and daughter and I mean, we really, talked about that quite a bit. And, our conclusion is that everybody said, you can do this. I asked about experience needed and things like that. Should I serve on a committee? And they said, no, don't worry about it. You can do it. You're a good communicator, smart dude. Thank you very much. I don't normally talk about myself like that, but I have had a career that taught me some really good skills that lend themselves well to serving on select board. I went to a meeting on how to run a campaign, if you've never run it before, hosted by League of Women Voters. Right. Panel members were Amy Marr and Anne-Marie Foley. Andy Jefferson and Colleen Roy were there. There were other members there. And I played the Columbo. I did the whole, you couldn't possibly run for select board if you haven't been on a committee, right? I mean, I couldn't possibly do that, right? Right. And I'm paraphrasing, but here's the sound. Oh, no, you could definitely do, no, don't worry, you could definitely do that. So with all of that, and in the encouragement that I've received, I'm going to take their word for it and say that.
And give it a shot.
I think I'm going to give it a shot. I want to go a little further here, because really, the part where I think I'd be good is what I've done for 30 years. So I have been in sales for 30 years. I was an individual contributor, and I led all the way to director of sales for a national position leading public sector sales. I've managed budgets from $30,000 a month to budgets of a couple $100 million a year. I've served stakeholders all across the country in 4 different worlds, from customers to my own company, to distributors, to people that report to me or people that I report to. And if you think about the job that I had, I'm right in the middle of everything getting squeezed. And anybody that's ever done this knows exactly what I'm talking about. You're on call all the time, and with unbelievable demands from customers, especially during COVID and obviously before and any time, but COVID was tough. And unbelievable competing agendas for various stakeholders. I do believe I've done a really nice job in my various positions to thread the needle of positive outcomes for people with disparate agendas. And you can go to the website, go to markalimo.net, and go to testimonials, and there's 3 or 4 of them up there from people that I've worked for or I've worked with that will tell you the same thing. And so with all of that, I can do the work of select board because I've been doing it for 30 years. Quite frankly, the select board work, a meeting would be a drive home from New York City to home with the phone on the holder, on Zoom, going, I could do this. And I think I can do it really well. And all I want to do, Bob, is I just want to help. I feel like, again, I'm committed to service, and I just want to help. So with those things, with my absence of experience, I think it's made up for, well, in town politics experience. I think I make up for it a zillion times over with what I've done in my career. This is earned, this gray hair. These wrinkles are earned, okay? And I'm not just saying it as a joke. I've said this before. I have earned this gray hair. Thankfully, I still have a little bit of it left, but yeah, I've earned it, so anyway.
All right, I'm going to give you the final minute. That camera represents the voter. You can talk directly to them, and we'll wrap it up.
So first of all, Bob, you and Bill, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. You don't know me from a hole in the wall, and I do appreciate you inviting me here. And to the people that are tuning in or have tuned in to listen, thank you very much for your time and attention. To the folks that are helping me on my campaign, you know how new I am to this, and you know how hard this is for me because it's just new and different, but I cannot thank you enough, and you know who you are. And to the people that I have met in the last couple of months, I just want you to know that I see you, and I hear you, and I understand you. Again, with an absence of some public record, that's okay. There's other things that I bring to the dance here, and I think I've shared that a little bit here with Bob today. What I will tell you is the downside of my campaign is that I have no political experience in serving the town of Grafton. But the upside of my campaign is that I have no political experience serving the town of Grafton. It's an advantage, and I think everybody knows it, because I don't come with political baggage. I am not tied to a political legacy. I'm not in the middle of any long-standing debates or arguments or personality conflicts. I don't care about that. I don't care about that at all. If you knew about my journey in my life, you'd understand that's not what's important. What's important is working together collaboratively and cooperatively to help this town move forward in a way that fulfills the promise and the potential of the voters of this town. I'd love to be able to be that person. I would be honored to serve you. I would work my heart out for you. I know my team wants me to ask for your vote. I'm not comfortable with that. I'm still not comfortable even asking people to put signs on their lawns. I don't know what the deal is, but that's just the way I am. But I will ask this. Between now and May 16th, I'd ask you to consider at least what I'm talking about. As a newcomer with a little bit less experience, just consider where I'm coming from on these things. And if you need to learn more or you're curious, I'm not hard to find. It's markalimo.net. We have an Instagram page. I should know that off the top of my head. I don't, but I'm not too far from anywhere in Grafton. And if there's a pub or a place that sells burgers and you know which ones I'm talking about, you'll find me there too. So thank you all so much for your time and attention, and I'll see you out there.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
You bet. Thanks, Bob.
You've been watching Meet the Candidate. On behalf of all the talented people that work here at Grafton Community Television, thank you for watching. I'm Bob Dutomo.